Alright, so I think we all know about that scene in Star Wars where Ben Kenobi says to Darth Vader, "If you strike me down now, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine." Now, of course, I gotta bring Leo Strauss into this, right? He has his book right here. Sorry. Natural Right in History, first published in 1953. And that's just about 25 years before Star Wars came out. And it has a very similar line about the Allied defeat of the Nazis in World War II. It says that it would not be the first time that a nation defeated on the battlefield and, as it were, annihilated as a political being has deprived its conquerors of the most sublime fruit of victory by imposing on them the yoke of its own thought. So he's referring to the influence that German thought had on America and the West generally after World War II. Right? One of the central names is Heidegger. Right? That's the subject for a separate video. I don't think it's really that disputed. So, what I've done when I think about this is relate this to the Soviet Union, right? America won the Cold War against the Soviet Union, and when the Soviet Union was plummeting to its death, it used its final breath to utter that same phrase, right? If you strike me down now, I will become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Now, I want to make 2 points about this. So first of all, there's this guy, David Horowitz, that I learned something from. It was when he was on the Dave Rubin show, the Rubin Report, and David Horowitz was raised a communist by communists, right? And he says that there was this Khrushchev report in 1956, right? It was a speech given by the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev in 1956 that was leaked to all of the international communists. And it acknowledged the fact of the purges by Stalin in the 30s, right? And so previously, all these communists had been living as though all these things said about Stalin were just, myths. But then there was this Khrushchev report, and it, it changed their view, right? And so at this point, defending the Soviet Union was different than defending the Soviet Union previously was, right? It weighed on someone's conscience more, right? And so, I want you to consider a few people, like, for instance, Barack Obama, right? Total leftists. Are we really going to, Bernie Sanders, are we really going to suggest that those people supported Reagan in the Cold War? Now, those people were opposed to Reagan during the Cold War, okay? Right? And the Cold War was against the Soviet Union, and Ted Kennedy was pretty much a literal Soviet spy, all right? You can look that up. There were a bunch of papers released with the fall of the Soviet Union that reveal that. I think the guy's name is Paul Kengor, who wrote about that. Kengor. I'm more sure I have the last name right than the first name right. Anyway, so all these people were opposed to America during the Cold War, during the 80s especially, right? Because the 80s, they ended détente. There's so much stuff to get into here. I just want to brush through it. And so what I'm saying is that the fall of the Soviet Union was sort of an antidote to the Khrushchev report, right? At this point, people didn't have to defend the Soviet Union anymore because it was gone, right? It had been defeated. There was no more Soviet Union to defend, right? Now, here's the thing. Making my point about Soviet Union and communism is one of the subjects that is totally related here. People define communism poorly because the issue is really communists and not communism, right? Like, let's take Stalin. Stalin was a communist, and he assumed power in the Soviet Union and did all these things. But a communist that were to assume power in America would be in a completely different situation, right? So the issue is not really defining communism, it's defining communists. And maybe I'll do that in a different video, but it certainly revolves around some sort of belief in equality of people, and requires some sort of hostility to free enterprise, right? Private ownership of the means of production. So, it reminds me of something Dennis Prager says. I like Dennis Prager. And he says that the best form of this or that exists in America, right? And he uses especially the examples of Christianity and Judaism. He says that the forms that came to exist in America are superior to the forms that existed in Europe. And he says that he hopes that'll be the case for Islam, right? But we certainly have to say the same thing is true for communism, right? Like, communists in America are not going to take over and have purges. I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm opposed to communism, but I'm pretty satisfied to say that, right? Like, but nonetheless, communists in America should be opposed, even though the best, form of communism would be here, right? Because communism is not really what you should choose. So anyway, so the second point that I want to make, aside from how now, communists don't have the burden of literally defending the Soviet Union. Second point I want to make is that right about the time of the dissolution of the Soviet Union, climate change conspicuously became a big political issue. Now, the history of that is something that deserves its own discussion, right? I'm speaking generally about this, but climate change became big after the demise of the Soviet Union, right? And climate change and the political activism related to it is what I'm referring to, basically centers around, say it with me, control of the means of production, right, by the government. So, it's just that simple, right? It's like, oh, it's not for the workers now. It's because industry is destroying the climate. And I have a video about that. You can look at my videos. Maybe I'll link it in the description. But that's all, taken out of proportion, right? Climate change is not the biggest issue that we face. Okay, just chill out about it. But the way it's said is that the communists, they switched from being red to green, right? So, it's fine to have environmental activists. I just would hope that they would be sober and understand that there are other issues, etc., etc. All right. So yeah, those are basically the 2 points I wanted to make. Right? The Soviet Union is gone; it doesn't need to be defended, and so communists or hippies have that burden taken off of their shoulders. And then the other one is that instead of calling it communism, they call it, climate change. Right? And anyway, what I'm saying is that what's really good is elitism done well and openly, right? And also that hippies suck, right? Politically. Oh, you know what my phrase was? Stick to the arts, hippies.